All right. Thank you, Lori. And yeah, thanks for being here, guys. Looking forward to kicking off this stage here. So, as Lori said, we're the co-founders of a company called Davant Systems, and it's a software company. And our mission is to essentially scout out all these AI tools. There's like so many that are coming out in the open source communities, all these different tool chains, and make those accessible to professional creatives. So there's a lot of software that comes out of like research papers, and it's extremely technical. And to get it installed takes a lot of technical knowledge, and we're trying to kind of fill the gap in between the technical knowledge and just like putting the tool in your hands, essentially, because there's just so much, so many powerful things coming out of that. So what we're going to look at today is kind of some things from the research bench a bit. So we're going to take a look at some kind of like bleeding edge, like facial rig, right? Posing of 2D images and whatnot. And we're going to be doing live demonstrations of that. So basically everything you're going to see today is running on this laptop right here. There's no internet connection. This is all happening locally. That's another one of our big tenets is local first. So that you have complete control over things, and also given productions, sometimes you need to be air gapped or whatnot. So a little bit of context first before we look at the cutting, the bleeding edge stuff that we're going to look at is a bit of our background. So David and I both have had careers in film and TV, in post-production, as well as like marketing and advertising agencies. So kind of boots on the ground, actually producing things. And particularly when Stable Diffusion came out and we kind of saw where all this could be going, we saw that there was this need, like I said, again, for closing the gap of all this technical stuff and actually making tools that professional creatives and serious creatives can leverage. And so that led us to building our product, which is called Davant Studio, which we demoed last year here at Production Summit. We're not going to do a demo of it, but we do just have a couple of screens of it just to show what that looks like. And essentially, it's based around image to image. So the small image that you see in the bottom there is an input image, in this case.
3D image from satellite.
So that's a 3D image of essentially like a virtual scene, and then running that through Stable Diffusion and via prompts and whatnot, transforming that image into an output. So instead of a text to image where you're like pulling the slot machine and who knows where you're gonna get, you can actually drive and have like creative control. That's another one of the big things is you need to be able to affect, all the details of that image and have control over that. So here's an example of like digital painting in Photoshop, kind of a very quick, rough input, and then our output there is kind of that polished piece.
Yeah, showing that you can, I need a car with 6 wheels instead of 4. How can I do that? Because the prompt's always going to want to make one with 4. How can, I drive my vision with the software?
Right. And so on the last piece of that, so the bringing that to the creatives is really a big piece of that. Pleased to say that as of today, this is now available both on Mac and PC. So the Mac version is something we've worked on for a long time. Again, all local. So happy to have that. And there's a free, we've also changed our pricing, so there's a free version of it to try it out. We're trying to get these tools in people's hands. So that's a bit of the context. And so as a part of this, we're also looking at, and David heads up sort of our research efforts of taking a look at all the new tool chains and whatnot that are, again, in the open source community, because the open source stuff in AI is exploding more than any other sort of open source communities I've seen. And basically, when we say research, what David's doing is going out, identifying, finding these tools and vetting them for are they ready for prime time? Like, are they useful in a practical sense? And if they are, then that's our chain to eventually work that into our product is the idea. So what we're going to look at today is specifically one of those tools that we've been vetting that we're really excited about its potential.
Yeah, and just before we go into that, there is a lot of tools out there that you'll see, and then you do a little bit of digging and you find out, oh, it only does this size, or the results that you saw were 1 in 100. So it was a pull of a slot machine and they got really lucky. So, or it will do a really weird size that doesn't conform to any video standard whatsoever. So we're trying to do things that's like, oh, this will handle any size. This will handle larger sizes, something that, at least 2K or whatever. So
Yep.
things like that.
Cool. So I think we're going to go to the okay. So it's enough about kind of our product. Now we're jumping into everything we're going to see here. Again, is open source stuff. What you're seeing, the interface we're going to be working in is called Comfy UI. Is anyone familiar with Comfy UI? Okay, a couple? Okay. So for those of you not familiar with that, Comfy UI is a node-based workflow tool for visually connecting the different nodes of all these different types of AI things together in like a completely custom way, right? So it's kind of like a visual programming type thing. And this is what David uses to vet this. Again, this is an open source tool that's very popular. So first up, what we want to show is one of the some of the cutting edge models that we like a lot. So stability, has like Stable Diffusion 3 and 3.5. That's on their end. Some of the newest models, one that we are going to show here is Flux, which is a model from a company called Black Forest Labs, which is fairly new. And we just want to kind of basically show you, like, here's the state of what text to image and image to image models are today that maybe you haven't necessarily seen. The things to point out about Flux is the detail and like the range of contrast that you can get in it, where you don't see a lot of some of the artifacts that you might see in other AI, right? AI can't do X hands or like whatever people still say. That a lot of that, the hair, for example, yeah. As well as text. There's not text or logos in this, but we found that the Flux models do incredibly well with you can write text in your prompts and get that text on a sign, on a license plate, like in the actual image.
And as you can see, it's a very simple prompt. It's not using something that's overly complex with this.
So that's the entirety of that text to image prompt. And we're getting Albert Einstein.
And I fixed the seed on here. And one of the things that I wanted to show off with this is I have a clay LoRa. As you see, there's nothing about clay in here, including there's actually color photo. Because we're doing Albert Einstein, it likes to make black and white photos of Albert Einstein. So if I cue the prompt here, now the only thing I did was turn on the LoRa, which is trained to be claymation. So I wanted to show how powerful the LoRas actually were and how they could be leveraged into it. LoRas can be trained locally on your machine. Like if you have a 4090, take 2-3 hours and you'll have a really good LoRa that you can use. And I've done ones with like 20, 30 images before. So it's not like you'd need a huge data set either, which is really nice.
Yep, and what we're showing is, the claymation one, so that's a style, but you can train a LoRa on a style, on a particular character, on particular settings. Like, it's incredibly versatile in terms of what you want to do with that. So maybe you're doing concepts or some design stuff or whatnot.
Okay, can you hear me better? Okay, great. So it takes a little bit, I think, because we were running the Stable Diffusion in Flux in Forge beforehand. Took a little bit to get it to switch over. So I'm just seeing, should be happening anytime soon here. Of course, it goes slow when we...
It's the beauty of live demos.
Yes,
Having it running right here.
Does anybody have any questions so far? Yes.
Not all of the open source tools are free, are they? I mean, don't you have to pay Black Forest Labs for using Flux?
I don't remember what the.
I mean, if somebody was making a commercial production and they use Flux, Black Forest Labs needs to get paid, right? By somebody.
Right. Off the top of my head, to be honest, I don't remember the terms, but these models do have different terms and whatnot. Like when Stable Diffusion 3 came out, they had a license on it that it couldn't be used for commercial use. My understanding is maybe that's changed now, but that is absolutely something to pay attention to. That varies between the models and whatnot. But when I say open source, the actual code base to run
Understood.
things.
Yeah, right. You could just download it, but there are rules around what you download.
There can be in the models.
Can I ask a second question? And
Yeah.
somebody else wants to go. We're talking about the Stable Diffusion family of models. Is that something that you continue to use, and do you continue to believe in stable video and stable audio and all the different iterations that they've been coming out with?
Yeah, so our product is focused on the Stable Diffusion line of models. We're not. That's just because we found that that's what runs locally and gives us really great results. Part of why we wanted to show Flux is because it's a departure to like now there's another kind of content.
So you could put in essentially any image generating model into the workflow.
Right, essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions here? Anybody?
So, yeah, on the whole thing, there is like, the Stable Diffusion family of things. Then there's, the Flux, and then there's a couple other ones out there. A lot of them have been adopted by the Comfy UI workflow. So now, it took about 4 minutes to do this, but it completely changed, as you can see, this over into a claymation stop motion look. And the only thing that I changed was Laura. I didn't change the prompt at all. I didn't prompt for claymation or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that there was no keyword activation or anything like that. So understanding what you need for certain things becomes more important. And this is where the vetting process is. Like, the main thing that I'm concerned about at this point is more, can it run locally? Is it getting to production level quality? I'm looking at a lot of the things much more in the realm of they're not ready for production. But if you need to make a mood board, if you need to do a pitch deck, if you need to do anything like that, these absolutely fit the bill for that.
Mm-hmm. And with that being said, yeah, let's get into sort of the meat and potatoes here of facial posing piece. So that was Flux. So we're going to take the image that was just generated, right? And that's what we see in the bottom left there. And what we're now going to demo is this is the kind of the facial rig pieces. This is a project that's called Live Portrait, and Live Portrait allows us to basically move parts of the face like programmatically under the hood. It's all numerical values where you're setting X, Y of like this part of the eyebrow and this part of the face and whatnot. And we've put on top of that kind of an intermediary UI. So instead of needing to do those X, Y values, you can just like drag around, right, a UI. So in this case, that top one David's doing is the head tilt and position. This is the eyes. Right, so opening eyes, closing the eyes. This is from that initial image, right? It is extrapolating and generating those changes in the expression. So push one really far. Right, so you get like the lighting change as his head turns. It actually fills in those shadows in the way that you would expect. And the muscles, it's not just moving, the pupils of the eye, for example. You can actually see that. Yeah, that stretch.
And the thing that I like about this over, say, other ones where you're driving it from like a performance, is this is very repeatable. You have exact numbers, exact values that you're plugging in, as opposed to, well, there was a different performance and the face was in a different position, so we're going to get something different.
Yeah. Can I go to another example?
Yeah.
And where I say is really powerful is, you have that, you have something and you think, I want to make him look just a little more sad or a little more happy. Like, I don't want to generate something new. I need to tweak, right? That's one of the big things that we see the gap in is all these tools are really powerful, but the ability to actually tweak your final piece, not kind of throw it out and start over. That's where, to me, this workflow really stands out as that ability to get that fine-tuned control over the expression.
Yeah. So once you have, so the way that I built this rig here is you actually have 3 different rigs, and then you have a different whatever frame you have on it. And then I have this crazy logic here that I built that if I turn on the crazy logic and the preview render, then it will go through and do all these switches and stuff like that based on how I have things set. And then it will actually produce an animation based on those keyframes.
So those three facial poses, it's now animating and not morphing, right? It's not doing like the smearing and the kind of odd morphing between those.
The motion is linear. You can feel the linearness to that. But this is where, because it's open source, you can actually get to the code and eventually get to a point where you could put in much more of a curved nature to it and access the tools and the settings through a different, completely different UI if you want to.
Mm-hmm. You want to show the light one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we always get the question about like, oh, how is it for video, right? We show a lot of images and how is it ready for animation and whatnot? Oh, yeah, question?
There are several different upscale nodes that use several different algorithms for them. Some are better for video, some are much better for like making, say an 8K still or something like that. It all depends on what you're doing. And I've been working on trying to figure out like what is a good one as opposed to for say stills like Topaz or something like that, because a lot of this stuff is weird and hit or miss and things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, upscaling is a problem.
Yeah.
The other question is, let's say I wanted to use web tools. I mean, I have a Comfy workflow that has web tools in it. Can I combine yours with that?
Sure, if this workflow, I mean, that's the power of Comfy, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you could kind of drop it in. And that's a great kind of segue of this is published on, David has a Civit AI or Civitai, yes, account here where this exact workflow that we're seeing is posted. And so you can download that and sure, yeah, you could add in those nodes and whatnot. Right, and that fusion is where things start to get really exciting.
I have a question for you guys. Just because we're at a show sponsored by Microsoft, NVIDIA, and all these guys, what do you recommend in terms of, say, someone's jumping into this for the first time, base level, setup, processor, all that stuff? Like, what do you think it requires?
Hardware?
Yeah, hardware.
So we recommend, I would say baseline, like if you're gonna have an NVIDIA GPU of like a 3060 series at least. I have a machine that has a 2080 in it, and it will run, but it's slow enough that it doesn't feel great to use. So
if you could get anything in the world but not spend a fortune, you would recommend?
Well, those are two different.
You can run it on a $2,000 gaming PC.
Right, you could. Yes, there's a large there's a large swath where you're basically just trading off your dollars for speed at a certain point, as long as you don't go through the floor of it. It doesn't work anymore, right? But we recommend like a 3060 and up at least.
Okay, cool. More questions for folks? Okay.
Did you create the rigging points through Live Portrait, or was that out of band in some other tool?
So there's another tool that gives you these pieces, the MX toolkit, and that allows you to do that. And I tweaked a bunch of the settings under the hood for that. And then, but Live Portrait literally just gives you this. So I think if let me see if, let's try this on it.
Yeah, so those XY and sliders are like tied to a bunch of numerical values.
Right, so they do the points in the tool, and then you can hook into them motion through MX.
Yeah.
Right. And that's that whole,
This
okay, we're
is-
trying to make the interface like usable and not you typing in a bunch of.
This is what you normally get, is you can move like the pupil X value and the pupil Y value. And I found that incredibly tedious and not very intuitive on how to do that. And for moving the head, yaw, pitch, and roll doesn't really make sense to most people. So that's why.
Did you guys do her lips? Because I pay a lady to do that. So you guys.
So
I'm just curious.
So the thing that I really wanted to show off in this is there's a lot of ones that do similar things, but they're basically, there's a 3D mesh underneath it and it's like texture mapped on. And I wanted to show off with this, with the light coming from behind her, how the light wrap actually is recalculated when her head turns. Okay, cool. So,
Yeah, so like things like that that differentiate it from other things. That's the part of the analysis is like, okay, something that looks really impressive, but when you really look at the details, this wouldn't kind of pass muster, right?
yeah. And the other one that I wanted to show was this guy here, where it's basically his chin is way up, but even though that one's way up, I can actually move it quite a bit down, and it will still hold on to it.
Right, so it doesn't require all the faces to be flat on. It can still manipulate it even at a side angle, up angle, whatnot. Yeah, like push the expression. They decided to not give him teeth this time. But it does, fill in. That's one of the places where it falls down. Is if somebody has a closed mouth and an open mouth, sometimes it will add the teeth in, and they look a little odd, right? Because it's kind of doing that from nothing. So there are places where it still needs some work to go, but
Yeah, like, I think. Let's see, does this one? So, real quick, does anybody want to come up and try playing with one of these rigs? Anyone?
yeah.
So,
Thank you for allowing me.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
So I'll start with winking the left eye.
Yep.
Okay, let's see how this goes. Aha.
and then if you use the scroll wheel, you can bring it back a little bit, and you can move the head here. So move the scroll wheel
Yeah. Yeah.
the other way. There we, a little bit more. There we go. Now you can move that. And that will move the head. And as you can see, especially for what it does, it's very responsive. And we never built a rig. We never put in bones in the head or anything like that, or set up muscle structures.
Is there a difference between an animated character and real character? Like, is these ratios change?
Um,
So the
As-
question was, is there a difference between animated characters and photoreal characters if the ratios change?
so I don't notice any. If you could try moving the more photorealistic one,
I'll do the same thing.
Yeah.
Over here.
you know, and it's more determined on what the initial face was. So it's like if it's already facing to the left, it can't face any more, at a certain point.
Yeah, like the zero of the values is the initial image, basically.
Yeah,
Like as humans,
yeah,
we each have a frame of reference.
yeah,
Okay. And so, like looking at this picture, I know something is wacky,
yeah,
but I'll not be able to put in words.
exactly.
Right.
Okay, so that's
That's why it also works much better for, say, the stop motion, because always the motion's gonna look a little bit weird.
Yeah.
But if you use it where it's good, which is, say, you want to do a 2D character or a claymation or a 3D character, then it works really well because of the fact that we're not keying in on that uncanny valley piece of the equation.
got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Which one do you want to try?
This one's up. I'll try this one.
Okay.
Okay, we just have a few more minutes. While Eva's playing, can you guys just let everyone know how they can find you? And where you guys maybe post about what you're doing and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So most immediately, you can find us over in stage one. We're going to have both our software Davant Studio as well as we'll have this workflow up. You can come and play with it and do live demo stuff. We have our magic mirror set up that is powered by our software. It does real-time AI transformation of you from a camera. So come check that out. Be here both days. And then online at davantsystems.com. We tend to post not a ton on socials, but Instagram if we do, to show off images. Yeah, like I said, Davant Studio is, as of today, out for Mac and PC, the free version as well. And if you want to talk about anything else, I mean, we love this stuff and could talk about it forever, as you can see. So come and chat.
All right, well, let's have a big hand for these guys from Davant. Amazing stuff and a great
Thank you.
way to kick off our demo day. So definitely go and check them out. Stay